This is a detailed investigation into one of the most shocking crimes of the early 21st century in the United States. We have studied hundreds of archival documents, witness statements, and news reports to reconstruct the timeline of a tragedy that shook the world and changed Florida's legal system. This is the story of a little girl named Carly, of a monstrous failure of the system, and of how a single piece of video forever changed our idea of public safety. An ordinary Sunday in Florida always feels a little like a holiday. Hot sun, palm trees, and a carefree atmosphere. For 11-year-old Carly Jane Bruscia, that day, February 1st, 2004, began like an adventure. She was a typical teenager. She wore low-rise jeans, dyed her hair bright colors, and loved pop culture. Friends described Carly as a caring and loving girl who couldn't stand to see others in pain. She had blue eyes, blonde hair, and dreams for the future. She was a Girl Scout. She had a cat named Charlie, a younger half-brother, and a 10-year-old stepbrother. That day, she had slept over at a friend's house. In the morning, she called her stepfather, Stephen Kanzler, to come pick her up, but for some reason, they missed each other. So Carly decided to walk home. It was a short route, one she had taken many times before. No one could have imagined that this would be her last walk. In 2004, security cameras weren't as ubiquitous as they are today. The cameras were old, low resolution, and mostly used for tracking work shifts or preventing theft at gas stations. Evie's Car Wash, located on Bee Ridge Road in Sarasota, had such cameras. And at 6:20 p.m., their lenses captured a moment that would later circle the globe on every news channel. Picture this: a grainy, almost black and white video, a shaky image. You see a girl in a light-colored sweatshirt crossing a parking lot, cutting the corner. Suddenly, from around the corner of the building, the figure of a man in a mechanic's uniform appears. Judging by the footage, they have a brief conversation. What did he say? To this day, no one knows for sure. Maybe he asked for help, or maybe he ordered her to follow him under threat. But the result was horrific. The man reached out, grabbed Carly by the wrist, and led her away from the parking lot. The girl didn't resist. She didn't run. Maybe she was scared, or maybe she thought he was an employee who just wanted to tell her something. She looked only 11 years old. That video became the key piece of evidence. The FBI and even NASA were called in to enhance the footage, trying to spot tattoos on the man's arms and the logo on his uniform. When Carly's parents sounded the alarm, the Sarasota Police Department launched a massive search operation. At first, no one knew about the security footage. But once the video was released to the public, the country was horrified. How can someone just grab a child in broad daylight? Asked talk show hosts across America. Soon, leads began to come in. Detectives traced the suspect's car route, but the biggest break came from tipsters who identified the man on camera as 37-year-old mechanic Joseph P. Smith. By that time, Smith was already in custody. In a bitter irony, or a cruel pattern, he had been arrested on February 3, 2004, for violating his probation on an old cocaine possession charge. The amount he owed in unpaid fees and fines? Just $411. To understand the tragedy, you have to look into the past of the man now known as the suspect. Joseph Smith was no angel. By the time of Carly's murder, He had been arrested at least 13 times, starting in 1993. Most of the charges were drug-related: marijuana, heroin, cocaine. But his file also contained violence. One woman accused him of hitting her in the face with a motorcycle helmet. He had also been charged with kidnapping a 20-year-old woman, though he was acquitted in that case. But the most terrifying part was the justice system that kept giving him chance after chance. In December 2003, just 2 months before Carly disappeared, a probation officer asked Judge Harry Rapkin to find Smith in violation of his probation. Smith wasn't paying his fines. The judge refused to send him to jail, saying that Florida was not a debtor's prison. That phrase would prove fatal. If Smith had been behind bars for failing to pay $400, Carly would likely still be alive. February 6, 2004, was the day the family's hopes were finally shattered. Joseph Smith, realizing the evidence against him was overwhelming, led police to where he had hidden the body. It was on the grounds of the Central Church of Christ, just a few miles from the abduction site. Her partially clothed body was found under thick bushes. The medical examiner confirmed everyone's worst fears. Carly had been sexually assaulted and strangled. The prosecution filed charges of kidnapping, sexual battery on a minor, and first-degree murder. The trial of Joseph Smith began in November 2005. His defense was led by public defender Adam Tobrugi. Smith's lawyers had almost nothing to counter the state's case, led by prosecutor Craig Schaefer. Here's what destroyed the defense. Smith's co-workers and friends identified him by his walk and the tattoos on his hands. Analysis showed that the semen on Carly's shirt belonged to Joseph Smith. The most devastating role was played by the defendant's own brother, John Smith. He told the jury that Joseph confessed to having rough sex with the child and then killing her. The brother also led police to the body. Prosecutors played recordings of phone calls between Smith and his mother. In one call, his mother tells him, "The best thing you can do is explain that it was an accident." Smith replies, "It was an accident, Mom." "I know, Joe." The defense tried to argue about FBI tactics and that the brother wanted reward money, but it was useless. On November 17, 2005, the jury deliberated for only 5 hours. The verdict was unanimous: guilty. Carly's mother, Susan Shorpen, sobbed with her head down. Her father, Joe Bruscia, nodded at each charge as it was read. Later, at a press conference, Susan said words that broke millions of hearts. "I can never hug her again. Where is the justice? I lost my most precious possession because of an animal, a disgusting, perverted animal." When asked if she was satisfied with the verdict, she replied, "When he's dead." In December 2005, the same jury had to decide life in prison or death by injection. Prosecutor Deborah Riva cited aggravating factors. The victim was under 12. The crime was committed while Smith was on probation, and it was especially heinous. The defense asked for mercy, citing depression and drug addiction. The vote was 10-2 in favor of the death penalty. Judge Andrew Owens sentenced Joseph Smith to death. But the story didn't end there. Years passed. Carly remained in memory while Smith sat on death row at Union Correctional Institution in Rayford. His brother John, who helped convict him, gave an interview saying Joseph felt like a king in prison. He had a TV and even a manuscript of a book he tried to sell. In that book, he called himself a victim of circumstances and drugs, never once mentioning Carly. In 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Florida's death sentencing system as unconstitutional. It required a unanimous jury, not a majority. In 2018, Smith's death sentence was overturned. In 2020, it was reinstated. Those legal limbo years forced the family to relive their pain over and over. The case caused such outrage that it went far beyond the courtroom. U.S. Representative Katherine Harris, the same one who played a key role in the 2000 election recount, introduced Carly's Law in Congress. The idea was to toughen parole rules for sex offenders and, most importantly, force judges to jail probation violators, especially those with a history of violence. Although the original bill did not pass in full, it became a catalyst for change. Florida passed a law establishing a mandatory sentence of 25 years to life for sexual crimes against children under 12, and GPS monitoring for released offenders was strengthened. The tragedy didn't end with Carly's death. The murder of a child destroyed the lives of everyone around her. Carly's grandmother, Eileen Shorpen, died of cancer shortly before Smith was convicted. The family said the real cause was a broken heart. Her grandfather, Egil, unable to bear the grief, moved to Europe, where he also soon died. Her uncle, Kurt Shorpen, exactly 2 years after Carly's murder, drove his truck into a tree. Friends and family had no doubt it was suicide. The most tragic fate befell Carly's mother, Susan Shorpen. The woman who demanded the killer's death in the courtroom could not cope with her loss. She turned to drugs and prostitution. On March 30th, 2017, she died of a heroin overdose, completely alone. She was only 47 years old. No one attended her funeral. Her father, Joe Brucia, took his daughter's ashes. The only asset Susan and her ex-husband divided in their divorce was a small green urn inscribed, "Carly, isn't she lovely?" During the investigation, journalists and police noticed another unsolved case. In 2000, the naked body of 25-year-old Tara Riley was found in a pond behind a Walmart in Bradenton. Joseph Smith was a primary suspect. His brother John claimed Joseph was also involved in that murder, but no evidence was found, and that case officially remains unsolved. The world was slowly forgetting about Carly's case. Joseph Smith, now 55 years old, was still on death row awaiting yet another hearing to review his sentence. In prison, his weight had ballooned to over 300 pounds. He looked old and sick. On July 26, 2021, State Prosecutor Ed Brodsky made an announcement. Joseph Smith was found dead in his cell. The cause of death was natural, liver cancer. He died without ever facing the execution that Carly's mother demanded. He died without apologizing. He died taking the secret of Tara Riley's murder to the grave. Although nothing will bring Carly back, we are grateful that her family, friends, and the entire Sarasota community can finally find peace and will not have to go through further legal battles to achieve justice, Brodsky said. Carly Brucia's story is not just a crime chronicle. It is a cross-section of a society where bureaucracy and human negligence can cost a child's life, where the sum of $411 mattered more than safety. This story is also about how one grainy video changed the way we search for missing people. The Carly Bruscia effect made ordinary people look at security cameras differently, as silent witnesses that are always nearby. In the memory of her peers, Carly remains that girl from the "We Love You, Carly" posters, who loved Jennifer Lopez and went to the mall with her friends. Justice in her case was only partially served. The killer was not executed. He escaped punishment through natural causes, keeping his kingly habits until his final day. But the lesson learned from this tragedy, Carly's law and stricter control over repeat offenders, continues to work, perhaps saving someone's life right now as we speak these words. She will forever remain a reminder that evil sometimes wears a uniform, but justice must be faster and harsher. Rest in peace, Carly.